Hey everybody, Kris Maxwell here with Loop1. I am our Enterprise Solutions Architect. Basically, it's a fancy name for sales engineer. So I've been with the company about 10 years, and basically my job is to understand your business requirements and use cases and translate that into solutions from Loop1 and or Runecast. With that being said, I'll turn this over to Wade Carlsen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Wade Carlsen. I am a systems engineer with Runecast Solutions. I've been with the company for about 3 years. My background is primarily in the system design and architecture phase of virtualization environments. Did that for 20 plus years with Fortune 500 companies, and today trying to slow my pace a little bit from the big world, if you will, and work for Runecast. And primarily my role is to illustrate and explain the benefits, the core capabilities, and how Runecast Analyzer can help you in your environment. So that's what I'm here to do today, and walk you through the benefits of Runecast Analyzer. Thank you, Kris.
So real quickly, a little bit about Loop1 as a company. We've been in business now for well over 12 years. We serve the majority of the Fortune 500 companies out there. We do anything from public training, customized training, implementations, basically anything under the SolarWinds sun, and Runecast and a few other partners as well. We have over 100 employees globally. We've done over 5,000 SolarWinds engagements since 2009. Tons of certifications. All of our engineers are certified on the products, basically everything that's available for the products, and same thing on our sales side of the house. We've got 5 locations worldwide and received tons of different global recognition awards for the work that we've done around SolarWinds services. So we're very happy to be here today and partnering with Runecast. And back to you, Wade.
All right, excellent. Let me get the share going. So in essence, I have a few slides that I'd like to walk us through today, and talk about the benefits of Runecast, the core capabilities of what the solution provides. There's several capabilities within the product, and really, explain the current state that most of us find us in the IT world, if you will, particularly from an overall management perspective, from an IT leader perspective, as well as a system administrator perspective, and what they have to deal with as far as support and overall health and keeping tabs on their environment, making sure things are up and running. So with Runecast Analyzer, what we try to do is, with the product, we're really expanding within the product space. We began as a VMware analytics platform. We've expanded that. Now we're into the 3 major cloud providers. We're looking at Kubernetes containers, providing you feedback on your configuration across the landscapes, and so on and so forth. So that's really what we're trying to do is become and be a single product that can help with many different aspects of your environment, and cover your landscape that we all find ourselves involved in this hybrid world that we live in. So with Runecast, high level logo that we have, simplified security with unparalleled operational transparency, and that's really what we're about. And I know security is listed here first. That's one of our major capabilities that we have, but operational transparency and efficiency, and I think I'll help illustrate that as I walk through some of these slides. But let me get rid of this screen. So as we all know, managing our infrastructure, our security and compliance related to best practices and industry standards is extremely complex. It's very difficult these days because we are running in these hybrid environments. We have, a lot of times a standard environment might have VMware on premise, right? We have to have somebody and a team looking at that. Then we have AWS, Azure, Google Cloud services and now Kubernetes containers and management of those. And a lot of times, these are different environments and they take different tool sets to look at those types of things and provide us what we need as far as operational conditioning, health status, troubleshooting, and those types of things. So with that, we end up with dispersed teams, separate teams supporting each of one of those. We might have several different tools hanging off of each of those technologies, and then we have to have an assigned product champion to manage and maintain and ensure that those tool sets are up to date and so forth, and take a look at them every single day and see what's happening. So that leads to the multiple solutions, and ultimately all this boils down to is it's extremely costly, not only in a monetary aspect, but also from an impact perspective, if you will. So many different things to look at. Communications among teams and between teams sometimes is delayed, and it can lead to downtime and extended periods of downtime and or security and health risks in the environment. So that's really what we find ourselves in these days, the type of scenarios that we're dealing with. So with that, just a quick view of a typical solution set that we're looking at today. So if we're looking at configuration management in an environment, if we have VMware running on-prem, we might be utilizing something like Skyline and VROPS. And then we're looking at compliance for multiple compliance and security standards. Not a lot of these products will cover a plethora of security standards, so we may end up having to have a couple of those installed in the environment to cover different standards and requirements that we have in our environment. And then on top of that, that's just compliance, regulatory, and then we have vulnerability management. That comes with its own set of tools. And then we have update planning, troubleshooting, etc. So the intent of Runecast is to facilitate and help facilitate one or two of these other products in the environment, like a SolarWinds vMan as an example, and possibly, maybe VMware's Lifecycle Manager or something like that. So the intent is not to completely replace all of these other tools, but it's to align and help facilitate, because there's very little overlap with what we do as opposed to one or two of these other products. But as you'll see, we're trying to be a simple solution, a single solution that covers a lot of these things across the hybrid environment. So at the end of the day, there are certain things that become overlap in some of these other products and stuff that you could essentially, at a certain point make decisions about. So that's a typical thing that most of us in the IT world are facing today. And so to introduce Runecast Analyzer and the power of Runecast, again, it's back to that logo or that simple saying of simplifying your security, simplifying your operational view and management of your operational space. So with Runecast Analyzer, we can do all these things. Okay, we can do configuration management, troubleshooting, whether it's related to your hybrid environments, your Kubernetes containers, your cloud services, your update planning, and I'll show you those types of things here in a little bit. I'll jump into the product so you can see how these types of things work. But also keep an eye on your vulnerability management, your compliance as well, for multiple compliance standards as well as platforms. So that's really what we're talking about here is trying to encompass much of the landscape in, I particularly don't like the term, but a single pane of glass, right? Trying to get a consolidated one tool set that's fairly easy to use, or in Runecast cases, extremely easy to use, simple to set up, and those types of things. So what type of things do we find as far as problems in IT operations? Time and time again, and this is why Runecast was built originally. Our co-founders led the IBM Center of Expertise for VMware, for IBM, but the Center of Expertise for IBM in the services industry for VMware. Time and time again, they would troubleshoot issues, ultimately to come to the conclusion that 90% of issues are already documented. I think, most of us are aware of that. There's this documentation out there. It might be in 100 different places, but it does exist. And ultimately, it's humanly impossible to analyze your environment, stay on top of all of these known issues and risks that are out there, best practices, and how vendors want us to have our environments configured, and so on and so forth. So it becomes you'd have to look at everything and changes every single day, and then go analyze your environment, build scripts. You kind of get the point. It's not humanly possible, especially when you're talking about dispersed environments, hybrid environments, and so on and so forth. There's just too much to look at and take into account. So automation is key, right? We have to build in automation to help us manage these environments and stay on top of things. And Runecast's perspective of doing this is, again, this is kind of a loop here, back to 90% of issues are already documented, right? So you're going to hear me say over and over again in the slide deck, proactive analytics, proactive approach to looking at these issues and bringing them to the surface and providing you resolutions for fix and remediation steps. So, ultimately all this has led to break fix scenarios being reactive, right? We wait for things to fix historically, then we start troubleshooting. That's backwards. As far as forward thinking, that's backwards. Manual security compliance efforts. We're manually checking things. We're manually looking at some sort of reporting and different types of things if we have that available for what we need, and so on and so forth. Best practices, let's face it, they're generally not used. We stand up environments as SEs, and we go off of our own experience. And at the end of the day, best practices and new versions of software get introduced, and we're not going and reading through all of the documentation and applying every little check and configuration in our environment to adhere to the vendor's recommendations. There's no time to do all of that. So it all leads to increasing complexity, decreasing our transparency into what's happening. We end up in this break fix mode, reactive, fighting fires. It's a common terminology for it. And then we never really, get ahead of the game and make sure that everything's solid, and we're looking to then do issue prevention as opposed to, fighting fires after the fact. I already talked about all of the dispersed tools, the different hybrid environments that need to be supported. This creates a skill gap. I think we're all familiar with that. SEs, we're human beings, so we do our best and generally get very good at one product, and then sometimes adopt different technologies that we have to support and do our best. It becomes the best effort. Well, that's not always prime. So automation and something like Runecast Analyzer can help in that regard for covering many different platforms. So with Runecast as well, we're looking to future-proof your organization. So we're trying to stay on the bleeding edge, and are staying on the bleeding edge of what the industry is moving to. Okay, so everything. If you roll back a couple decades now, almost. You look at virtualization was the newest, latest, and greatest. It was great. It's wonderful. I personally built a career off of it. I love it. But then it took the next step in the cloud services and cloud offerings. And now we're looking at containers and Kubernetes and different aspects and providers of containers and different things like that. So Runecast Analyzer is constantly updating, constantly enhancing the product to make sure that we're staying ahead of the game and it's staying essentially with you in your migration efforts and the new technology efforts. So how is Runecast different than, say, some of the services that you might be able to buy through AWS, Azure, VMware, for example, Kubernetes, and different types of things? Well, first of all, we are a single solution that covers all those things. Okay, so AWS isn't going to provide you any services or any tool sets that are going to help you with your Azure environment. They're not going to help you with your Kubernetes environment. They're not going to help you with your VMware environment. So that's kind of the point. You kind of get the point of that is we cover everything with a single solution. The differentiators listed on the left. We're going to cover everything from your operation to your security posture in your cloud services as well as your Kubernetes. Over on the right, we're going to look at, and this is a list of all of the products that we support. Let me move my little picture here. In the vSphere suite, vSphere, vSAN, NSX, Horizon, vCloud Director, we are supporting Kubernetes, AWS, Azure, GCP, and about 6 months ago, we introduced capability to Linux and Windows. Historically, we were just looking at configuration of these different environments at the infrastructure layer. Now we're looking at guest operating systems and providing you feedback on your Windows and Linux systems as well. So here's the list. I'm not going to read through all of these, but the security hardening guides. Again, with a single solution, you get all these standards built in. There isn't an uplift in cost. If you want to check your environment against all 11 of these, you can. Just simply turn them on or off within the product, and it's that easy. But the essence of this is everything from government standards to healthcare to payment card industry and general standards like ISO. NIST is becoming extremely popular with clients I'm talking to, as well as CIS and so forth. So we have that as well. Then we also have, VMware knowledge as far as the KB repository that we're going to show you proactively configuration issues in your environment that are going to lead to outages. It's known, it's documented by the vendors. These are issues with the product in certain configurations. We identify those and tell you how to resolve them. And then best practices against all of these vendors. All of these vendors provide best practices based on how they recommend you set up their technologies and run your environments. Not to skip over, but we also take a look at, in the VMware world, your VMware hardware compatibility list, and our intent ultimately is to help eliminate your need to deal with the HCL, and I'll show you that in the product of what and how we're doing that. So in essence, real quickly, that's how Runecast is working. This is a very simplified version of it, but we have an AI-assisted knowledge parser. We're going to grab from all these different public repositories this call it a conglomeration of databases of information. We're going to pull that into our product and parse relevant information from what we're gathering for the products that we support. And then we're going to ultimately put that into our definition database of an appliance. And we're going to be able to analyze your configuration and do comparisons between your configuration and all of this knowledge repository, and ultimately show you where you have identifiable problems. We're also going to show you where you're passing certain things, so your Runecast can be used as a health checker. So it's not everything that's wrong. It's also going to provide information about your overall stance, and if you're looking at security, your compliance. If you're looking at your hardware stack, your supportability, those types of things. So again, the products that are supported, but this is in essence how Runecast is working. It gets deployed as a virtual appliance, very simple 15-20 minute setup, and you're off and running and scanning your environment. The core capabilities within Runecast are listed here. I've touched on some of them, but again, it's proactive operations management, security posturing, configuration analysis, security compliance checks, upgrade simulations for your VMware environments, and log analysis is all built in within the product. So let's go ahead and jump into the product real quick. Let me bring up my demo screen. And Helen, can you give me an okay if you see my screen okay?
I can indeed, Wade.
All right, thank you very much. So this is the dashboard. So what I'm doing is I'm targeting my web browser to our Runecast appliance. This happens to be running in our lab. And this is what it looks like. Again, this is an OVA file that gets deployed as a virtual appliance. It's really 15-20 minutes to set it up. The amount of time it takes to build a virtual machine is the amount of time it takes. During the process, you'll be asked to target your management systems. So your vCenter server, your Kubernetes API server, your cloud services accounts. And that's really, at the end of the day, each of those management systems hosts and has available all of your configuration data about your instances, and we then pull that information down and do the onboard analytics like I was talking about, and crunching those against the different knowledge repositories, and all of those repositories become part of our definition database. So if I highlight down here in the bottom left, that's going to list everything that Runecast has built into it to check and scan for all of the different products. But ultimately, when you first log in, the dashboard's going to come up, and this is going to give you a high-level view. So in this case, obviously, I have the appliance built. I've ran a scan. This is an online trial, so it has download free trial here. Normally in a production instance, this would have Analyze Now. Click Analyze Now, and within a few minutes, we're not talking you kick this off and wait days or come back tomorrow and hope you have information. Within minutes, you'll have results based on our findings in your environment against your configuration stack. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time in the product today. I do want to highlight and key in on certain areas, but overall, I want to give you a feel for the type of information that we're providing, and ultimately what it looks like, a little bit of navigation through the product, and so on and so forth. So, towards the end, I'll have a slide where you can go to our website. This online demo is available. You can go out and check it, and get a better feel for things that it's doing and how things look and so forth. But when I first log in, the dashboard will pull up. Over here on the left, I have 3 different sections. I have a main menu, configuration analysis, and log analysis. Under the main menu, it's dashboard type of reporting, like dashboard, inventory view, and all issues. Those are like dashboards. Image scanning is for Kubernetes image scanning. So that's what that is intended for. But under configuration analysis, this is really kind of the meat and potatoes, if you will, of Runecast, and each different section illustrates a capability that we have. So config KBs discovered. This will scan your VMware environment and give you results based on VMware's extensive knowledge base repository. Okay. So what we're finding, again, proactively in your environment of what's been documented by the vendor based on your configuration, where you're likely to have issues. These may not be causing problems today, but your configuration is indicating inevitably over time you're going to have problems. And then we have best practices. This is comprised of all the vendors provide best practices. Vulnerabilities, security compliance, configuration vault, hardware compatibility, and a way to customize Runecast checks is custom profiles. So each of these, again, illustrates a single capability. Down below, we have log analysis. I'll touch on that briefly after I get through some of these things, but Runecast Analyzers, we don't position ourselves to be a full syslog solution. There are better products out there that do that, and that's all they do, like a Log Insight or a Splunk or things like that, where they're going to pull all your logs in to a single location, which is extremely useful for certain aspects. What we're going to do is pull your VMware logs in, and we're only going to show you error logs. And two different things that we do. We're going to look for KBs related to what we're finding in your logs, and ultimately show you if there's a KB article written by VMware illustrating the errors that we're seeing in your logs. And we're going to ultimately show you what those are, and we're going to illustrate where that's occurring and which objects in your environment are generating these logs. And from the article, we're going to provide a resolution and tell you how to fix it. The second thing we're going to do is log inspector. And here we're taking your logs, filtering them, and only illustrating error logs. Okay, failed to, error, could not, etc. This is to provide an assist for the system administrator to speed up troubleshooting effort. Okay, so we're going to try to, the phrase I like to use is shine the light on the needle in the haystack, because logs are essentially, there's one log in there that might be really relevant to you for troubleshooting, and it's sometimes almost impossible to find it. We're trying to, shine the light on that needle. So in here, you can open up the finding from the log. We have a couple of options for hourglass views. I can open this up and see which hosts are generating the most logs. I can see which program the most error logs are being generated from within those hosts. And ultimately, this helps key me in on my troubleshooting efforts, again, so I can get things back up faster. A lot of user experience things in here where you can search. You can look at historical data. You can scan different date ranges and so forth. And you'll find throughout the product, we have a lot of those little user experience features built in as well. But that's log analysis. KB's discovered. Each one of these sections, vulnerability, security, config KBs, they're all going to look the same and very similar. Even log analysis is ultimately we're going to report on what we're finding by severity. Okay, so again, in one click of a button, in this lab environment and in your environment, you can target every product that you have, whether it be a cloud account, Kubernetes, API server, couple vCenter servers. Click a button and Runecast is going to analyze and provide feedback on all of them, okay? Related to those core capabilities that I illustrated earlier, not only from an operational perspective, but also from a security perspective and a configuration perspective. So the reason I highlight that, we're going to list by severity. Again, this is our lab. We break lots of things on purpose, so we have plenty to show. But we have 4 different severity levels that will illustrate the finding: critical, major, medium, and low. If I scroll through, I start seeing the different severities. But the real key of this is if you open one of these findings, all of the data that we provide you. So in essence, we're going to tell you within this environment that I'm scanning, how many objects that I have failing this, how many that I have passing it, the overall status result of this. If I have one failing, this will show as a failed check. But under the issue description, everything you need to know about this. This is an AWS load balancer access control list. So give you the description about what this is, what it means, and how to resolve it. Okay, so I'm failing this on 3 objects. I need to figure out most system administrators like myself, I just tell me how to fix it, right? Normally, I take something like this and I go out and start Googling myself and hope I find a relevant fix out there that applies to my environment. Well, with Runecast Analyzer, we take the guesswork out. This is your config, your environment. This is the remediation steps from the vendor. You don't have to go outside the product to figure out how to resolve this issue or be aware of the issue. So remediation is something you'll find throughout the product. Regardless of where you are, we're going to tell you how to resolve issues. We're going to give you, keys and steps to build a script. We do have some remediation I'll show in a moment where we built the script for you, but just to give you a feel, we're not going to leave you hanging, I guess is the point. We tell you how to resolve things. If I go under analysis findings, it's going to illustrate and highlight the objects that are failing this. So these 3 will be listed here. These are the objects in my AWS environment that are failing this. Finding details will show you the check that was performed to validate the conditions and Runecast findings is true. Details about it, links to the vendor's documentation if you wish. You can always filter something out within the product. Custom profiles, again, I'll briefly touch on that, but just to note that button's available within any of our findings, a custom profile. Again, that's to build your own custom Runecast check. Won't spend a lot of time on that today, but you can kind of build your own security standards and different things if you wish with our product. So that's really in essence. If I'm in KBs, I'm going to get similar data. Best practices, it's a yes or no. You're either complying against that recommendation or you're not. If I scroll through this list far enough, I'm going to start seeing things that I'm passing. Okay. Let me scroll back over here. So it can be an overall health check. Okay. So if management, as an example, is wanting to get an idea, send me a report on, our compliance against best practices. I can run a scan and I have the results here. I can generate a report, bundle that up, and I can email that to the boss, so to speak. Also, you'll find within a lot of these screens, you have these drop downs up above. So that helps you and gives you the ability to segment this data. So say I'm in best practices, and at the moment I only want to look at criticals. I only want to look at critical best practices related to VMware or vSphere affecting availability. Let me select a few of these until I get, so most of ours are related to security in this example. But ultimately I can filter however I wish. If you choose to filter like this, then you can generate a report with those filters in place. Okay, and it's really simple to do that. So you can segment and generate reporting based on what you want to see. If I clear those, everything comes back. So the next step is vulnerabilities. So those common vulnerabilities and exposures, the CVEs that are written, we're going to check your environments against. Okay, so the products that we support, we're going to pull up. Many of the VMware security advisories end up as a CVE as an example, so that we have tons of them in here. I can come in and also segment this data, say I only want to look at CVEs related to my Windows systems. I can search by product and then just look at the environment and which vulnerabilities I have in my Windows environment. OS support was something that we ended up implementing within our product just a day or two before Log4j hit, as an example. And Runecast was giving away free 7-day licenses for folks just to scan their environments to see where they were vulnerable to Log4j. So, which we all know that affected the vSphere layer, the OS layer for Windows, Linux, Windows primarily, but you get the picture. We were trying to provide an assist for folks to see where they were stacking up in their environments against Log4j. Security compliance, again, 11 different security standards, standard frameworks, if you will, to give you the ability to scan your environment against. So if you have any sort of regulatory compliance that you have to adhere to, or you just simply in your environment, you want to know that you're complying against some of these standards, all of these are available within Runecast. It's real simple in settings. By default, VMware Guidelines is the only one enabled. In settings, you go in, click a box for any of these others to show up, and then you click scan and you scan your environment against them. It's really that simple. We always like to say how intuitive, easy to use this product is. There's no learning curve. I mean, if you can build a virtual machine, and if you participate in your environment and know much about your environment, you can look through some of these results and see what's going on. It's self-explanatory in many cases. Again, learning curve is flat. Anybody can use it. So just to give you an example, all of these different standards are pulled in from the different organizations that create the standard. Runecast doesn't inject our own logic in here or our own controls. This is, these are pulled down. This is pulled down from NIST, DISA STIG for the highest level of government type of compliance we have built within the product. PCI DSS is a very common one. So I'll just show some examples. But when we pull a security framework within our product, for the products that we're able to scan, we pull the entire framework in. So PCI DSS is an example. Just for VMware, we have over 241 checks for VMware and PCI DSS. That's just an example. So the point of this is we're not looking at a subset of the control or the standard by these organizations. We're pulling everything in. So ultimately enabling you and helping you for that next audit, whether it be internal and external audit or any sort of compliance that you might have. So again, very similar to the other sections, the KB's best practices. We're going to give you a description. We're going to tell you how to resolve this issue. We're going to show you exactly where and which objects are failing this. In this example, I only have one. And then details about the control itself. This is a PCI security standard, so we're going to give you links to their organization and their website. The products that are affected in this example, the layers, everything that you need to know about it. So again, providing you all the detail. And the important part of that, again, throughout our product, we're always going to tell you how to resolve. So we're not just highlighting things and saying, okay, now you're aware of it, good luck, go find a relevant fix. We're going to provide you the fix. Here's a good example, another PCI DSS against my AWS environment. 24 objects failing this, one is passing. Ports and protocols, incoming connections, okay? This could be extremely important. It's rated as a critical. So again, all the details I need to know about it, how to resolve it. A lot of these frameworks and standards will have both the control lingo or descriptions as well as the product descriptions. So like AWS, we're going to tell you from an AWS system engineer perspective or an SE perspective how to resolve it. So it makes sense to them because us SEs don't always speak the, PCI DSS security lingo as an example. So all the data is going to be available and provide you guidance on resolving those issues. So that is security compliance. Configuration vault. This is something that I've been really excited about within our product because, we added configuration vault to help people in environments keep control and have visibility into configuration drift. As we know, over time, things change in our environments. Sometimes we're aware of it. A lot of times we're not. What changed, when it changed, so on and so forth. That's what Configuration Vault is built for. So it can help you keep tabs on those configuration items. What changed, compare with different settings and configurations in your environment and show you over time what's been changing. So in here, depending on the systems that you're targeting Runecast for, these management systems, multiple vCenter servers, we have an AWS, Kubernetes containers, operating systems, etc., that we're looking at and scanning in our environment. Everything would be here, and to view, I just select one or the other to have a look at the configuration in each, and then by default, the latest scan that Runecast performed will illustrate what you're looking at. So the three drop downs up here are different capabilities within Config Vault. The first one, Inspector, is going to be basically a snapshot of your configuration, okay? If I look at View, I can look at, to the most granular level, the configuration of my environment. So in my vCenter server, I can look at the hosts, I can look at clusters, data stores, port groups, the vCenter, IO devices, etc. Whatever I want to look at, it's all in here. And then ultimately just see how these things are configured. I can generate a report. So I have this in black and white in like a hard copy type of thing, and so on and so forth. And if I drive through the config list, anywhere in here that has a hyperlink, there's more data available for it. So you click the hyperlink and it's going to pull you up the exact configuration details of, in this environment on this host, these IO devices that are installed within it. Okay, HBAs, what kind of card it is, what type of naming I might have provided it within my virtual environment. All those types of things will be in here. It makes it very useful. Again, otherwise we're scouring through vCenter, clicking several different areas to gather all of this information, where Runecast Analyzer will pull this automatically in a single location for you. Baseline comparison. This is where you can select a baseline configuration and see where your other objects in your environment differ from that baseline. So as an example, and again, this is available through whatever product you have or are targeting. As an example, I ESXi host servers here. Say I just built this one out. It's the latest and greatest. I have all the patching, everything on it. I can select that in here with a click of a button as my baseline, and then immediately see how other hosts in my environment are different than that host. Okay, so that's my baseline. I can look at what's different between the other hosts in this one. Everything from connection state, memory that's configured, CPU series, BIOS levels, HBO counts, NICs, etc. This will also list certain services like SSH and different types of things if one's set to run and the other one's disabled, things like that. But ultimately, you also get the data here, and everything that is different within those hosts will show up in red. So you can quickly see what's different within your environment. And then last but not least, historical changes. This is where you can track what's changed over time. By default, again, the latest scan will be listed here. I can select any scan I want, but ultimately this gives you the ability to compare configurations from different dates. Okay. So latest and greatest to October 5th. Say I have a problem that exists today in my environment and it didn't exist, say, a week ago. I can go back and select that date and time and click apply depending on what I want to look at. Say I suspect something's happening on the host. I can leave host selected here and then ultimately see what changes occurred during that time on the host. So again, pull it up. A lot of these results will be very similar to my other examples, but they're all the same servers. So ultimately I can come in here, what's changed? Maybe something on the host changed to where, I don't know, maybe a DNS server was fat fingered when it was entered. There's name resolution problems. You can come in here and it's going to show you what's different and what changed between those two dates. So extremely useful, complete reporting functionality. It's that simple. Click the export button. I get a CSV file with all this data in it. So extremely useful for day-to-day operations, possibly troubleshooting, seeing what's occurring over time, and just keeping tabs on inventory is another way to actually use Configuration Vault as well. So hardware compatibility. What we're doing with hardware compatibility, this is just for VMware environments. Config Vault covers everything. Best practices cover everything. Our security, everything, meaning the products that we support. Config KBs discovers just VMware because it's just VMware's KBs. Hardware compatibility is just VMware. Cloud services, we don't have access. You don't have access to your underlying hardware. That's provided, support's provided by the vendors. But hardware compatibility, we're going to scan your hardware stack and show you against the current version of VMware where you're not under support or you're not compatible with VMware's HCL, okay? So green means everything's good in here. Red means I have a problem. If I open one up, one of these red items up, I can see the server platform itself and the IO devices that are installed within it. And then ultimately quickly see where I have discrepancies against VMware's HCL. In this case, I have a BIOS version that's not supported. Down below, we're going to provide you with the resolution and show you exactly which levels and BIOS versions are compatible with the version you're running. Similar thing to the IO devices. I have red in here. The greens are okay. Red in here. If I scroll down, driver firmware versions. Okay, I have a set in here that's not compatible with version 6.5 of ESXi that I'm running. Down below, we tell you which ones are available that are supported. If at any point I had a card or the server was not compatible, I'd have a red up here. So ultimately, you can use Runecast Analyzer as your lifecycle management of your hardware stack. You can see at what point in time you have to replace things. Okay, very useful in that regard as well. So that's against the current version you're running. We took it a step further and we built in an upgrade simulator because eventually VMware stops supporting old versions and you have to upgrade. So in my environment, I have a mixed mode, 6.5 cluster, 6.7, and 7. I can come in here and select which version I'm going to upgrade to. Just for this demo, I'm going to select 7 Update 3. I'm going to leave all of them available for the simulation and click this button. Within a matter of seconds, we've cached your configuration, VMware's 7 Update 3 definition or HCLs in our definition database. It is really that quick. And then ultimately you can see my results change and I can start digging through my environment and see what I need to do and perform in my environment prior to an upgrade. Okay. If I don't take action and address these issues, it's likely I'll have problems during the upgrade or immediately following it. So again, we can get an idea if we have cards to replace, have to replace the server itself, or in this case, simply go out and update a driver and a firmware on this card so it'll be compatible with the new version. So no more guessing, no more looking at VMware's HCL, cross-referencing that to a hardware vendor's recommendation sheet and spec sheet and doing that back and forth. Again, click of a button, Runecast Analyzer does all that for you. So back to the AI aspect of all of this and what I was touching on in the slides, humanly impossible to accomplish all of this. Usually there's something missed. We have problems after an upgrade, then we're troubleshooting, systems are down. Again, back to the AI, let Runecast, a product like Runecast or Runecast do this for you. So really, that's the full capability of Runecast. Again, there's a lot of different user experience and features. If you go under context, there's different dashboards for each of your management systems. If I just come into here in dashboard, that's going to contain everything. If you want to hone the data in on, say, a specific vCenter server, I can get a dashboard just for it. If I want to look at my AWS environments, there's a little bit different looking dashboard, but there's a separate dashboard for cloud services. And I can see exactly what's happening in my cloud services in AWS in this case. My compute storage network and IAM, identity access management. My results are going to be in here. And we actually give you a global view of where your systems are hosted. And that's kind of useful, kind of fun. So different dashboards for different products. Enterprise console, this is for anyone needing to run more than one Runecast analyzer. Okay, so more than one virtual appliance, to where you can pull that virtual appliance into this and have a centralized dashboard for not only your local analyzer, like I'm logged into, or a remote analyzer, like this one here that I can hyperlink to, and see the overall Runecast results for those remote environments. If I click this demo, it won't let me because this is an online demo, but if I select this, it'll auto log me into that locally at that appliance as well. So this gives you a lot of good information about the Runecast version, the definition version that you're running for Runecast, and really a high level of what's happening. Your severity levels, critical, major, medium, lows, vulnerability, security stance, and really a dashboard report for you. Under main menu, dashboard inventory, these are all just different views on how I have my RC playground still under my context. But if I go to inventory view for all of my systems, I'm going to see everything. This is just a different view. This view makes it the easiest to drill down to specific objects in your environment and see Runecast findings for that object. Okay, this just makes it. Us SEs are used to vCenter and different hierarchy type of standards and things like that. And this is very similar to that. Other than reporting, I have 404 issues on this host as an example from a Runecast perspective. And then I can start seeing the familiar things that we've already seen over here, the criticals, severity levels. I can manage those findings from here as well. I can look at the details, the findings. I can add a note. I can filter it out. I can manage really that finding from within here. So that helps drill down easily into the object level. Last but not least, the inventory view. And again, this is everything. It's every product we support, every check and capability that we're looking at, whether it be security, vulnerabilities, KPIs, best practices. And this is just a high level, everything that Runecast is finding across the landscape. Again, you can drag and filter however you wish in here for what you want to view at the moment. You can generate a report. One last thing I want to touch on. That's a brand new UI I was just showing. This is the older UI. You can use both. We have yet to port this little button over to our new one, so I have to go back and show you. But I talked about a little bit ago and mentioned it. We'll build some scripting for some of the findings that we have. Today we've built in over 250, I think is where we're at, findings that we have that we'll build a script for. If we have a finding with a blue R, if you open that finding, now you'll see a blue tab that you can select, blue button. Remediate, you can pull that up, select the environment you want to remediate, the objects that you want to remediate. This is starting and stopping an SSH service policy. Click generate script, and Runecast Analyzer will build you either a Power CLI or Ansible script to where you can download that and go run that at your change window in your environment, so you don't have to take the time to build the script yourself. So part of the remediation that we've been adding to the product, it becomes very useful. And again, Runecast is here to save time and keep the environments healthy, like to say healthy, happy, and functional. So that's the remediation step. I could spend another 40 minutes and stuff in the settings, but I won't do that. At this point, I think we're getting close to the top of the hour. Let me go ahead and turn it back over to Helen at the moment. I think she's going to have a Q&A pause in here as well. So everybody, thank you for looking at Runecast Analyzer. Again, my name's Wade Carlsen, and there will be some contact details at the end of the presentation as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Wade. Yeah, that was really insightful. It was great to see Runecast in action and really the ease with which you can get it stood up in your environment. Kris, back over to you. Do you want to share the final slides? We didn't have any questions at this point in time. I think you probably amazed them so much with all the content that you covered today, Wade.
Yeah, it's a lot of content.
They're still trying to process it.
It is a lot of content, but
Yeah,
Runecast does a lot, so you have to spend some time and cover it all.
Absolutely. As you said, you probably could have spent another 40, 60 minutes just going through some of the demo.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, as far as content goes, yeah, I do also can share the integration between Runecast and SolarWinds for those folks watching who are SolarWinds customers. So if you guys don't mind, I could show that real quick.
I think that would be great, Kris.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So let me pick this.
And that keys in on, when I was talking earlier, Kris, about how we can integrate and how we can reside and help support other products in your environment as well, right? So
yeah,
this is the perfect example of that.
Yep, 100%. So Runecast fills a gap that SolarWinds has, and that's what really kind of started this conversation and this relationship between Loop1 and Runecast is, hey, they've got a really cool product that meets a need that we can't fill today using a SolarWinds product. So rather than reinvent the wheel, which, Runecast has made a fantastic wheel. What they're doing with the AI and looking against those KB articles and the best practices and the compliance rules, like that's massive amounts of work. So rather than try to reinvent that, let's bring the two together. And what I've done here is just a very easy management dashboard using modern widgets through SolarWinds. We're querying the Runecast appliances using the API pullers and bringing back the data that I wanted to see in this dashboard, which was at high level, right? If we switch over to Runecast, we see here we've got vulnerabilities detected, issues detected, while I'm mirroring that just using the API in the SolarWinds side to talk to Runecast and just get the bits that I feel that I need in that single pane of glass. The other area where we want to expand that in is at the VM level. So here I'm looking at a VM that's out there, and you can see data from vman. It's a SolarWinds product where we can see, things like VM latency, IOPS, capacity planning, right? When is my data store going to fill up? What we don't have from the SolarWinds side is this thing configured according to best practices? Will I pass a PCI audit or a NERC SIP audit? Things like that. We don't have an answer for that. So we're integrating with Runecast to fill in that gap. So see here we go into vman's main summary page. This is what you get for the main summary page, but I could pull in the Runecast data using the API puller to bring that into a single pane of glass. And this is just a very rudimentary puller saying, hey, pull the critical issues. The next step in the evolution is to say, pull the critical issues for this VM or this ESXi host that it resides on. So that's where we're at today with it. The products are very easily integratable. It just comes down to what do you want to see? So with that note, I'll switch back over to the slideshow.
Excellent. Thanks, Kris, for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you had one final slide coming up, Wade.
Yep. Let's see.
Yeah, you gonna share it, Kris?
There you go. Sorry.
Yeah. So this is just to illustrate some of our client base and what they say about Runecast and utilizing Runecast in their environments. We just like to show that this is just a very small subset of who we have out there and their use case. What they're finding, real live results of Runecast and how it's saving them time, saving them, preventing outages, and say overall, bringing the ROI back to them for using Runecast. So I'd like to highlight that as well. I won't read through every single one of them. I figure people can read themselves. But yeah.
And I think there's one more, Kris, just after the question slide. I know whether you want to talk to this one, Wade, as well, just a little bit of background on the Runecast challenge and how people can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've been offering is what we call a Runecast challenge, and that's in essence, stand Runecast up in your environment. And ultimately, if you don't, I can't remember the 10 issue. It's listed right here. If Runecast doesn't discover a minimum of 10 issues in your environment, then you get free licensing for the product for a year. So that's the challenge. We are, we're challenging people. Everybody that I talk to that either runs a trial or buys the product, obviously we do so many checks, we're going to find something, but this is a challenge. 10 issues. You may not have 10 issues in your environment, but the point of this is once you identify and see those problems that Runecast can identify, then it just becomes very clear and evident how quickly the ROI for Runecast can be. One issue that pops up here can save you the amount you might spend on Runecast an entire year in your environment by preventing an outage or closing a security hole, type of thing. So that's really what the challenge is about. And, happy to discuss that any further. And there's some links in here that you can see via Loop1, the Runecast challenge in there. So if you want to get that started, we'd be happy to help facilitate that.
Fantastic. Thanks, Wade. Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour now. So thank you both very much for your time today. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. As Wade said, the link there will take you through to the landing page on the Loop1 website for the Runecast challenge. If you want to give that a try, we will be sending out this copy of the recording and a copy of the slides following today's broadcast. But yeah, thank you everyone for your time. Thank you, Kris. Thank you, Wade. And have a good day, everyone.
Cheers, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Oh, and please remember to complete the survey as you leave the webinar today. Your feedback is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks all.